Hi, and welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we are getting into all things multi-camera, not just the technology, but what's the experience they're looking to achieve, and what's the science behind multiple cameras, different angles, AI direction. Really interesting conversation with Bo. Thanks so much for him coming on the podcast. We get into his Microsoft history and a little bit of what he's doing at Huddly now. Also, many thanks to AVI SPL, who are the sponsor of this podcast. Really appreciate their support of everything we're doing at Empowering Cloud. And with that, on with the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Excited to finally get Bo on the podcast. I can't believe this is your first one, Bo. We've had so many good conversations at the show. He's finally going to get you on the record. So thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, great to be here, Tom. I know we had many great conversations on the sidelines of different events, and now we are in the comfort of our respective home offices with all the gear that anybody out there would want to. So let's see how this works.
Yeah. Hopefully it should come together. So for those that don't know you, they might know you from your Microsoft days. Maybe you can give us a bit of background of what you did at Microsoft and what you're doing these days as well.
Yeah, like once you cross kind of the 25-year mark, you start reminiscing about the good old days. So that puts me back in the last century, literally, when I joined Microsoft Exchange in 1998. So everything was happening on premise. We had, I was responsible for some of the email protocols, and then I ended up in what became the Windows RTC server. It was Exchange RTC server, then the Windows RTC server, then the Office communication server, then the Live communication server. I might have gotten those two in the reverse order, and eventually Link. And Link was truly when we decided that it was time for us to make a play for the Holy Grail at the time, which was IP telephony. So it was the first time where we had the ability to break out from the peer-to-peer or just the Windows to Windows communication, devices communications, and break out to telephony. I remember because the first time we made an assumption that maybe people would not need phones on their desktop, on their desks. But we were quickly...
Jamie's handle on Twitter, I think, is still no more phones, which makes me laugh.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot find one nowadays. You can, but most people, I think, just prefer to do it on their desktops. And primarily, I attribute that to the fact that video has become such an important component of communications, like being able to have gaze interaction and be able to understand what are all the nonverbal cues. Those are super important. 68% of all the information that you and I transact right now are nonverbal in nature.
Awesome. So you went through the Microsoft journey that a lot of people on this pod did, and these days you're at Huddly. So what's the role there?
Yeah, so I joined Huddly almost a half years ago. In May was 2 years ago. And my role is quite broad. So obviously I'm still in Seattle and still in Redmond. So working with Microsoft a lot, folks on the West Coast, including Zoom, on defining what is the future path for our industry. Just joined Huddly because I had known the founders for a long time, since actually before I had come back for my second tour of duty at Microsoft, when I came back to Skype. And I just have a strong alignment on the vision that Steinove and the company put together around multi-camera devices, multi-camera systems, which is something that surely we'll get to talk more about in a little bit.
Yeah, Huddly was kind of ahead of the game in that conversation of like camera-based intelligence. I can't remember what it was, but I remember years ago, Fraser coming into one of the offices I worked at. He's like, look what we've got, look, we can do this. And it's just developed from there. So yeah, I guess you're the perfect person to talk to about a perspective on multi-camera. And we've had a few pods where we've talked about this, and there's kind of an interesting conversation about the kind of center of desk type devices. There are a few in play now, and the multi-camera outside in. So I'd love you to give kind of a perspective on that conversation.
Right, perfect. So first of all, let me take a step back and say that while most of the focus these days is on multi-camera setups, there are actually three different trends that are unfolding in parallel, which are kind of relevant to this conversation. And the first one is IP. Right, so we talked about IP telephony. For a variety of reasons, most of the cameras still connect to these days via USB to the compute, right, to the codec, to the controller, whatever you wanna call it, right? So I think it's super important. And if I'm looking into my crystal ball, 27, 28 onwards, I believe all these audio video nodes, because it's not just ultimately about video. I think we are talking about multi-camera solutions today. Next year, we're going to be talking about multi-audio video perceptual nodes, whatever the term is going to end up being, where you capture both the audio and the video, as well as you play back the audio around the meeting space, right? You want to kind of fill it in on the perimeter. So IP is super important. Secondly, Edge AI is super important because not all multi-camera systems are made the same. There are two different schools of thought there as well. One of them, which seems to be prevalent, but it's not ours, is that all the video streams should be sent to the MTR or some compute for pre-processing. And then it's the compute that decides how to composite the view. Our belief is that data should be processed as close to where it's being captured, specifically on the camera or the audio video node to the edge. Because look, and this speaks to scalability, right? If I want to have 5, 6, 7, 10 cameras in a room, I cannot send 10, 6, 8K streams to any compute. It will just drown in a volume of data. So first IP, second Edge AI, and third is outside in versus inside out, right? And obviously we have some very strong opinions about not necessarily what is the correct architecture, but what is the architecture that works best with the way people conduct their business, right? So we take our cues from how humans behave in a meeting space. We also take our cues from how experiences are produced in other sectors, adjacent sectors like broadcast, TV broadcast. Like what do those TV broadcasters do to retain the attention of their audiences? Because that's ultimately what it's about, right? What is
that engagement conversation is really interesting, isn't it? Like why can I watch a debate on TV and feel super engaged, and yet it's the same for people on a Teams meeting, but it feels different? Can we get some of that spark of engagement we get in the broadcast area? Is interesting.
Exactly. And I think, if you're looking, all the discussion these days is about agents, right? So you have different agents that are kind of replicating the role that humans play in the real world. So one of those agents obviously is the cameraman. So the cameraman, what do they do in a TV studio? I mean, we've all seen a bunch of shows that deal with that life. So we are familiar with it, even if we don't have firsthand experience. So the cameraman kind of selects what are the best shots from their perspective. And then all of these candidate shots are being sent to a producer, right? So that producer then across all the shots makes some determination as to how to engage the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And we have something similar, right? We have a camera agent that presents those candidate shots, and then there is a distributed producer agent which decides which one shot to be broadcasted, to be sent to the other participants. And the natural way in which our brain works is that we don't look in all directions at all the time, right? We're not spiders, so whatever animals can look in all directions all the time. We kind of create and maintain a mental map of the meeting space. So when we are physically present in a meeting room, we look around slowly, and then just one person at a time. So we want to create the same experience. I think you and I spoke about what are some of the problems that cause people to have a less than ideal optimal experience in the meeting room. One of those is, and my favorite, is the mirror anxiety, right? So the fact that you have this secondary screen that shows you back at yourself, and then your brain consciously or subconsciously keeps looking at it, and that distracts you, right? The second one, which is more interesting and relevant to what we're discussing, is called hypergaze. So if I have a bunch of people looking at me from the screen, again, my brain will try to process and understand what are the nonverbal cues that these people, what are they trying to tell me continuously? And we simply cannot cope with that. Our brain is also limited in its processing capabilities, so we cannot process more than 2 or 3 streams at the most. And the third one is being trapped. Like right now, I'm kind of feeling trapped in this box, like in the field of view of the camera. In a meeting room, I can get up and walk around. So for all of those issues, we solve with our multi-camera system, right? For the hypergaze problem, we solve by, instead of providing 20 streams in the same time, you have a carefully curated sequence of shots that give the remote participant context, right? You're not just showing one person at a time. If you and I will be talking to each other in a meeting, we'll try to capture that dynamic and spatial relationship between the participants, because spatial relationships, understanding that as a remote participant is critical to me kind of building the meeting graph and then reasoning on this meeting graph. The typical questions that one unconsciously asks themselves are, where is this person in relationship to the other person? Who's looking at whom? Where is the focal point of the meeting?
It's interesting that the goal is not to get a best straight on shot of everybody on the meeting and grid them out. Like that felt like where we were at a point in time where it was like, we need all these angles to get the best face on, and then we present everybody and you can tell what's going on. It's really interesting to think about that fatigue of your brain is hardwired to try and understand what's going on. If you present 10 people in your field of view, you're constantly processing what are all 10 trying to do, but also you've got that problem of you're starting on certain screens to not even have the capacity if you're remote to get a good view of any of those people. So that idea of AI direction is really interesting to say, how do we A, keep it engaging, and B, not create that fatigue?
Right. Yeah. And to your point, right? Like how do we process our surrounding reality? Like we have two eyes. Like we actually evolved from some predator because the prey has the eyes on the side, but we have the eyes in the front. And the reason we have them in the front is so that we can establish parallax. And in order for us to be able to reach and grasp something or grab the prey or whatever we evolved for, you need to be able to determine the actual relationship between you and the object you're trying to grasp. So that's what we try to emulate with our multi-camera system, to allow people to create a 3D representation, a 3D mental map of the meeting room. If you're looking at, let's take a 360 camera, right? So it's sitting in the middle of the room, and then it looks as if I am turning my head around and I only have one eye, right? So you have this cylinder view of the surrounding space, which is, a cylinder is a two-dimensional space, it's surface. Now you throw in a video bar front of the room, but they're all kind of like on the same optical axis, right? So now you kind of have 2.5D, like you can make some inferences about where people are in relation to each other, but you cannot really accurately judge distances or line of sight. So if you have a multi-camera system, 3 cameras, 4, 5 around the room, and we have pretty clear guidelines to our systems integrators how to roll them out in such a way that every person is kind of seen by 2 cameras. So you have this overlapping, almost like 2 eyes, right? That are distributed looking at every person.
Yeah, I was interested to ask actually, because like the 360 cams, it's fairly obvious, right? Like we've got a front of room bar, we attach one of these 360s, and you said it's kind of solving a problem of, we've got a better view face on of more people. So solving that problem.
Right.
But I haven't seen any great, and I talked to all the OEMs, I haven't seen any great guidance, and maybe I've missed it, on like why 3 cameras versus 5 versus 6, to what layout, to what seating plan. Right. So it's interesting to think about what the optimal use case is.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to admit, we probably haven't done a great job educating the market either. We build a foundation and we continuously refine the experience in order to provide our users with what's best for them. So the best way that I can describe it, and let's limit ourselves to 5 cameras. If you have one front of the room under above the display, and we have adaptive perspective correction that allows you to place it as high or as low as you want. I was just having kind of a sidebar conversation with a customer earlier today, and you have this massive 21:9 displays that take pretty much the entire wall. So then being able to place the camera higher than that, even like we see them being dropped from, like you have a ceiling mount, and then you drop them for a ceiling mount, but then compensate and kind of adjust so that it feels like it's lower. So you don't have distortion to the edge of the
you don't want the old school CCTV top-down view.
Right, exactly. Like, surveillance in a prison.
Yeah.
So that's the one camera, right? So that gives you usually the overview shot. But then cameras, let's call them 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, you kind of have them towards the middle of the wall, like 3 meters from the front wall, and then 6 meters for those that I'm talking to you in meters.
Yeah, we do meters. That's good.
Multiplied by 3 for feet for the audience that's operating in the imperial system. So cameras 2 and 3 will look backwards into the room, but cameras 4 and 5 will kind of look forwards into the room. So that's how you get those overlapping field of view. Those are super important, again, for the system to be able to reason in a three-dimensional space, because you have this SLAM, right? It's a different branch of computer science that allows you to do a reconstruction of the room, and you need these overlapping fields of view so you can say, well, I see a head. Well, I see it from this angle with this camera. I see it from this other angle from this other camera. So now I can determine where the head, what is the pose, right? Like I can do pose estimation and spatial relations with other heads much better than if I have just one view of that particular person.
And has the ML and AI really advanced in recent years over being able to deal with multiple feeds and intelligently choose the shot? You talked about the kind of producer agent type scenario.
Right.
I feel like we've seen so much advancement in AI in the last 36 months that surely some of that is coming through to much smarter capabilities device side.
Right. Super important issue, right? So obviously we see a huge volume of advancements lately in the public arena, if you will, with LLMs. But even before that, you have specific advancements in the way video streams were being processed. And we used to have, well, we still have in some of our systems, an Intel NPU, a neural processor unit, or an AI accelerator, whatever term you want to use. We've recently, with our C1, we've shifted to a newer one from Umbrella, which is significantly more powerful. So we have more headroom to run more models. And specifically what these models are doing...
Sounds like you're giving me a new thing to compare on all the devices. Now I'm going to have to look at tops for the different devices.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure what that's not being... we talk about it a lot, right? But I don't see that being part of the standard evaluation matrix for devices, because you don't know the current pace of innovation, what capabilities LLMs will have in 2 or 3 years, right? So we are going to be able, and we are designing in such a way that you can run some of these models at the edge, because there's just too much data to feed, and it's too expensive to feed everything to the cloud. So you have to kind of do it in a decentralized fashion, actually. That's one of the things that I had worked on in Microsoft Azure, Edge AI, so I continue to have a passion for it. But specifically, we talked about what can you understand, what can these models understand, and they can understand body pose estimation, head orientation, but also you can look at who's looking, again, I gave this example earlier, who's looking at whom, right? Even if these people are seen by different cameras. So you can kind of reason across the entire visual space of the devices. But equally importantly, if you're thinking about the way audio is done, and I think this conversation will accelerate over the next few months again, audio, for all intents and purposes, is being processed in a visual domain, right? Like, being super technical about it. You have a spectrogram, and then you analyze it as a picture, as a unfolding, revolving, evolving picture. So that's why all the advancements that we've seen in visual understanding start applying to the audio understanding. So you have this evolution from kind of hard-coded classical AI pipelines to ML audio, to ML-based pipelines, where a lot of the components that were hard-coded by developers are now learning from data, right? So that's what machine learning ultimately. You still have an algorithm that's deterministic, but it's being learned from data, and you're kind of optimizing it towards a goal, right? And that goal is isolate this voice, right? I know exactly what my voice looks like in the visual domain, so I can process in such a way that I can eliminate everything else around it and just present it as this is the artifact that has to be shared with the rest of the participants.
Yeah, it's interesting, the audio. We had a conversation before, and it's like, I kind of was like making the point that the audio in you being in the room is the bar, and we're trying to replicate that. But you made a really good point that actually with all the audio processing we do now, if you have a higher end mic setup or some of the multi-mic directional beamforming mics, there's an argument to be made that with that plus the processing, the remote audio experience might be better, as in the echo's been processed out, the different speakers at different volumes, different parts of the room gets optimized, and actually we can do a really good job of optimizing it for the remote participant.
Exactly, you're absolutely right. As if somebody is just whispering in your ear directly, right? Even if they are 10 feet away. So that's why I believe the mantra that we are working towards is better than being there. And I think this is a great segue into, there is this, we talk about AI, but AI is now embodied, right? Like in the sense that it actually occupies the same physical space that we do, right? It has its sensors spread all over the room. So if before, or until now at least, the main audience, the main customer for a unified communication system was people, right? Usually remote participants, that's where most of the value and people caring about inclusivity and equity. But now you see the AI agent emerging as a persona, right? So it's equally important for the remote participant, the human, to hear well, as it is for the AI agent to hear well, so it can transcribe and it can surface contextual insights during the meeting. So I think that's a very important phase shift in the way we design our systems, because obviously everybody's talking about AI agents, but in practical terms, what does it mean? It means that you have these participants, some of which are representing the humans that participate in the meeting, others are representing the company, right? And they have a goal of capturing the knowledge that's being created in the meeting and then persisting it and disseminating it and ensuring that the business processes are unfolding properly.
We had a conversation.
Yeah,
we had a conversation with the person who looks after transcription for Microsoft and Teams, and it was the AI conversation has really brought the quality of transcription into focus, like really sharply, because it's being used to feed the data conversation. So, how good those models are at getting from the audio to the transcription, but B, how much more important quality audio is to capture every part of that conversation.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we talked, I think, yesterday as well about what is Satya calls them frontier firms. What is a frontier firm? Like, a lot of companies are just kind of bolting AI to their processes today, but a true transformation to take advantage of these capabilities means that you have to put the AI at the core. And ultimately, as they say, garbage in, garbage out. The AI will only be as good as the data that feeds it, right? Like, you don't want to end up with a model at the core of your corporation that hallucinates. So architecting your business operating system, let's call it, around a shared data spine that's being leveraged by all your business applications. Like today, a typical company will have Salesforce for their sales organization. They'll have some ERP software. They have some human resources software, and they're all kind of disjointed. And getting data from one to another involves writing a bunch of connectors, but you don't have a single source of truth.
No, so, and all incomplete as well. I think everybody's very confident that it's really hard to get people to fill in a CRM or a Salesforce, an ERP to the level you would like.
Right.
But potentially we're bridging that gap now with AI being able to consume everything and kind of store and retain.
Right, exactly. So again, like my belief is that the AI model itself, like a lot of the companies are using OpenAI models. I'm not sure to the extent to which any modern enterprise, what is the asset that a company really has? When I joined Microsoft, it used to be people, right? Because in people's heads is where the knowledge that gets created is residing. But nowadays, I will argue that core of the company is the data that it creates, the knowledge that it creates, and it's now spread across people's heads as well. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us still, but also in the code, in the IP filings, in Word documents, in PowerPoints, it's all over the place. So you want to kind of standardize it and create this data spine that we spoke about, which then you can write business applications on top. And when you have this end-to-end workflow from the data that salespeople collect from the field to that informs the product and feature prioritization and design, that informs the business strategy. So the CEO can just kind of look at a dashboard and see at a glance how is the business doing and what are the opportunities. That's I think, how most of these frontier firms will spend their resources over the next 2-3 years. It's a transformation akin to what had happened in the 90s when all the companies were deploying the SAPs of the world, the ERP software. So everything will be flipped a little bit on its head.
It's interesting to think about. It's also interesting that actually some of the mid-market SMB customers might be the first ones because they're more adaptable, they're faster to move, they're willing to change and compete. And
Right.
I have a hypothesis that actually some of these frontier firms won't be the tier one brands we think about today. It'll be the competitors who are willing to go all in to compete and change that will take advantage of this new capability.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's Clay Christensen calls it the plane of non-consumption. So the early adopters of any new technology, especially a disruptive technology, will be those companies or individuals that do nothing today, right? So a lot of existing companies that are fairly advanced, they already have a lot of systems in place. So the new system, any new disruptive technology will usually not have the same capabilities as the technology that it aims to replace. So then you will see the companies that don't really have a lot of ERP or SAP, or they don't use Salesforce, they still use, pen and paper or Excel. Those are the ones that will adopt it first. That is my strong belief. And actually, a lot of business research shows that to be the case. IP telephony, again, being a prime example. All the companies that had the fancy Nortel PBXs and Avaya PBXs, they didn't deploy Link. It was those that didn't have anything else. It
was still the analog or non-IP system jumping straight over the first gen of IPT into UC. Right. Yeah, it's super interesting to think about this. I feel like we're in such an exciting time, both kind of in the audio video collab conversation we had there about optimizing the experience, but then that next jump of how are we going to collect this data and help people build this kind of corpus of corporate knowledge, and how will we use it? How will the agents use it? It's still definitely up for kind of debate, I think, at this point.
Right. And I think especially relevant to the conversation that we're having about unified communications is that if at the moment this is the bridge between humans, I think there will be this active chatter. Like you and I will have our own respective agents. And as you and I are talking at human speed, they will negotiate and agree on things on our behalf and exchange relevant information at machine speed behind our backs. And then by the time our conversation is over, we would already have our notes transcribed. We'd already have our next meeting set up. Our
AI agent will just be telling us what to do. It'll be like, come on, you're not going fast enough.
They might. I mean, we already see that with Teams, right? Where it tells you to emphasize certain words or speak slow or speak faster or acknowledge the other people in the room. But they will do a lot more than that, which brings up another interesting conversation topic, which is who owns this data, right? Like, you're kind of your own master, right? But for those that work for a company, will essentially their digital twins be owned by the company, or will they continue to retain ownership of their memories and intellectual property that they create?
It strikes me as similar to the conversation, but way more accelerated of like the IP conversations. So some organizations, when you join, you basically sign up to like anything you come up with during your employment term effectively is the company's IP. And that you can kind of see the logic of that, particularly in software development, where it's like, well, were you thinking about it off hours or on hours? Like that, this is different, isn't it? This is, if I spend 5 years working at an organization and you've recorded everything I've said and everything I've done, is that your knowledge to carry on leveraging after I'm gone? Or is it like, where's the line on that? It's super interesting.
Yes, I think a lot of lawyers will make a lot of money sorting out these issues.
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of inevitable on some timeline that the not. I mean, being paid during that time. It's a work asset coming out. But yeah, it's a weird thing to think about that we've never had that concept of the value of my thoughts and expertise are bringing to the conversation can live on beyond me.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking Harry Potter, the wizard had this thing called a pensieve, I think it was called, where he was pulling his memories into some sort of a device, right? So who owns that pensieve? Because obviously you think of a lot of other things during your work day that are not necessarily work related.
Yeah.
And what happens after I leave? Like, you already have today a lot of controversy around, well, who owns my network, right? Like, will the digital twin stay with the company and continue to impersonate me in dealing with those business connections that I had made? Will there be a fork essentially between me and the digital me, and I have to start again with a new baby to educate and
or
raise?
can I take the digital me to the next org? Like does that come with? I remember OpenAI, Sam was hypothesizing about a kind of OpenAI login experience where your memories and brain stayed with that, and you go org to org, a bit like the Bloomberg thing was always, it was your login, not the company's login. So as you move financial org, you kind of took your network with you.
Right.
That was a really strong point for them and their network effects, because essentially the person owned the network and they took it business to business.
Yes. So now, do I want OpenAI to own that me? It's almost like, we were talking yesterday about the Black Mirror episodes, right? So will I have to pay Sam for
to maintain my digital twin?
Right. So there are a lot of people, obviously, techno anarchists, let's call them, that believe that all of this should be persisted locally, and as much as possible, you should retain control of that and expose just enough of it to the outside world, the same way that you actually have to open your mouth to communicate as a human. The AI would also have to have an equivalent of opening its mouth, and obviously you have strict controls from the human side onto what it can say and what questions it can answer. We're seeing that a lot. There's a company started by Tim Berners-Lee, who famously founded the web, called Inrupt. And you own your own data. I think they work with a lot of governments. So you have this concept of a hardware pod where you own your own data. And then if an insurance company comes, then you can grant them access for the purpose of them evaluating your suitability as a potential customer, just for a limited amount of time. But they cannot copy that data. They can just query it. And then it has to be flushed. So I see an equivalent of that, where I have my agent. It can be talked to even without me present, but the actual data cannot be
is mine.
Yes, it's just so, and you can do that, right? In machine learning, you have a concept of federated learning, and it was developed for banks to be able to pull their data to determine financial fraud, right, across different domains. So they are not sharing the actual data; they are just sharing the gradients from those models running on the data, so you can then aggregate this. So you arrive at a conclusion. And similarly, you can apply that concept to a meeting, right, where our agents can vote on an issue, and it's sort of anonymous, like they arrive at a conclusion, but it cannot be traced back to who said what. The group agrees that we should move in this direction versus that direction. And it's done without the agents disclosing how you truly feel.
Fascinating.
You arrive at consensus.
Yeah, it's so interesting what we're on the verge of and where this goes.
Right.
Thanks so much for jumping on. You definitely have to come back, though, because we always have an interesting conversation with you. And I know you're very plugged into the UC, but you're doing a lot of thought on the AI side as well. So it's interesting times.
Thank you for your time, Tom. It was a pleasure, always.
Awesome. I'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye.